From the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., the Congressional Report, with your host, Iowa Congressman Tom Latham.
This country is based on farms, on small businesses, and creating jobs and opportunities. That is the lifeblood of this nation.
And now your host, Congressman Tom Latham.
Welcome to the Congressional Report, and thank you for joining me. It's the duty of every American to honor the veterans who have sacrificed so much throughout our country's history to protect the basic rights and freedoms that form the bedrock of American democracy. Earlier this year, I had the pleasure of visiting the unveiling ceremony of The Wall That Heals, a traveling half-scale replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall sponsored by the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. The replica wall has traveled to hundreds of cities throughout the country since it was built in 1996, literally bringing the wall home for millions of Americans, including many disabled Vietnam War veterans who are unable to make the trip to Washington, D.C. to view the memorial wall. I'm proud to report that Featherlight Trailers, based in Cresco, Iowa, has constructed a specialized trailer to get the traveling wall from one city to the next. The employees of Featherlight have played an important role in making this tribute more accessible to veterans and other Americans. And for that, all Iowans should be proud. With Memorial Day quickly approaching, I've invited Dan Schenk, Program Manager for The Wall That Heals, to speak with me about the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. and the Traveling Wall That Heals program. Welcome, Daniel. Tell us a little bit about your organization and how did you get started?
Sure. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund started in 1979, and Congress asked us to build the wall, build a memorial for the veterans of the Vietnam War. So our founder, Jan Scruggs, set out to lobby and raise the money to build a memorial, and 3 years later, in 1982, on Veterans Day, we actually opened the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, or the wall as it's more commonly known to the public.
How did that process take place? How much money did you have to raise, and you chose your architect and all those parts of the equation? Sure.
It was a very complicated process. First, we had to go through several government commissions to have the idea passed, and once the idea was passed, we started the process of raising the money. In the entire process, we ended up raising $10 million to have the memorial built. Once the money was raised, we then opened it up to actually a nationwide contest. We had designs come in from all over the country, and we ended up choosing a Yale student who's an architect student at the time for her design. Her name was Maya Lin, and she came up with the design of the memorial that you see today, and she's gone on to a very illustrious career after building the memorial based on her success with it.
It is really an incredible memorial, and with my era with Vietnam, and to for myself to go to the wall and see names of people on the wall that I knew, some I went to high school with and college, and it's really a moving experience. Tell us about the Wall That Heals and how that came about, and what you're doing with that program now.
The Wall That Heals began essentially because we found that many veterans were not able to make the journey to D.C. for one reason or another, whether it be health, financial reasons. They just weren't able to come and experience the memorial for all its importance and its healing effects. So we wanted to start a program to bring the wall to these people instead. So in 1996, we started up the Wall That Heals, and we constructed a half-scale design of the memorial. It's made out of aluminum, so it's lightweight, it's easy to carry around, but it has the same design, same look, and the same effect for the veterans to when we come to their community.
Tell us about the construction process and how long it took and to get all this put together. And
It took several years. The program started out very small. We had just a very small trailer that we towed behind an SUV, and it was strictly just the panels of the wall. And then we ended up building a larger trailer that involved a museum aspect to create more of an educational experience to go along with the wall. And then we ended up building a larger trailer, and then just this past winter, with Featherlight, we renovated that trailer to have an even more powerful experience for the visitors.
There's also an educational part of the display also. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. The museum, which is housed in the trailer itself, is an educational experience predominantly for children and the general public who might not be as aware of the war, because it's a subject that is not always taught as much in our nation's schools as I would like, and some of the veterans would like. So we have displays that show the history of the war, how it began, some of the timeline with the events that occurred not only here in the United States but also in Vietnam, and how those two coincided.
Well, you've made, I think, 300 stops inside the United States, and actually some outside of the United States also.
We've had the pleasure of going to Canada. There's a memorial in Windsor, Canada, for the Canadian veterans of the Vietnam War, and we made a stop there to have our memorial along with their Canadian memorial to work together. And we also had an extreme pleasure in 1999 to travel to Ireland, and we visited all the provinces of Ireland for about 2 months. We traveled the country, taking it to their people who had their soldiers fight in the war, but also many Americans of Irish descent that fought in the war too.
What kind of reaction do you get when you go out to the communities and set up the wall? Is it like it is here in Washington, or what's the response?
It's actually an amazing response that we get. The veterans especially always appreciate us coming, because a lot of them feel, many of them didn't get the recognition that they got or they deserved when they returned home. So by bringing the wall, they feel as though they're getting that honor now. And for the community itself, it's a very unifying event, where people from all walks of life come together to put on this event and create a very powerful and moving event for these veterans of their communities. So it ends up being not only great for the veterans, but for the entire community itself, because it really brings them together to fight for one cause.
It is really a great program. Is there a certain effort that a community has to do to get the wall to come into their community? Does it cost them any money, or
Sure.
What do they have to do?
It's a rather simple process. The cost involved, it's a $5,000 cost, which covers our cost at the Memorial Fund to bring it to their community. But other than that, once that money is raised, and largely is fairly easy once these community members go out and explain it, it's just a scheduling process where I work with them on what dates are good for them and what dates are good for us in terms of where we are in the country. And then we work together to find the best time, and then the communities work on scheduling events and ceremonies and these sorts of things.
Is there any size? Does a community have to be 50,000 people or anything like that, or does it?
No, we go to communities of all sizes. We've been to places as large as Boston. We've been to Baltimore, but we've also been to very small towns in Middle America. I know in one stop we had a town of 3,000 people, and we ended up having 10,000 visitors that week. So we like to go to towns of all sizes because we know veterans come from all places all over the United States, so we don't want to limit it or stop anybody from coming and experiencing the wall.
Now, you mentioned earlier about Featherlight, and obviously it's in my congressional district in Cresco. And tell us about how Featherlight got involved and what they did as far as the trailer and modifications that were needed.
Yeah, when we set out to build a trailer that involved a museum, we know we needed a larger trailer, and we needed something that was going to last and withstand the wear and tear over the years. And we knew at the time that Featherlight built the best trailer out there, so it was an easy decision for us to go to them and ask them to help us with this project. And they were excited, to say the least, and they worked with us to design a trailer that met all our needs, and what they came up with was a car trailer that was converted into a museum. And you know, their people were really instrumental in working with us to find all these specific elements that we needed to make sure it had the proper effect that we were looking for.
What's special about the trailer? I know, talking with the people at Featherlight, that there were a lot of people volunteered time, and that was they're really proud of what they did. But what unique features did they put into it?
I think more than anything, they put in a complete sacrifice of their time to go into this trailer. As I talked to them over the months of the renovations, I would periodically hear, you know, we were here till 11 o'clock last night working on something because it needed to be done, or we saw this little problem and it wasn't in the original plan of work, but it needed to be done, so we did that for you. And it was just a very hard-working crew of people that got it done, and got it done well beyond what I ever thought it would turn out to be.
It's really great. I had the chance to be there the day that it was unveiled down there, and the Featherlight people obviously were very, very proud of what they had done and the way it turned out. I can mention that it's 300 cities that the display has memorial has been to. Has it ever been to Iowa, do you know?
We have. We've been to Iowa several times. I know that we have been to Vinton, Iowa. We've been to Ottumwa, Iowa. And actually this year in 2009, I believe it's July 30th through August 2nd, we'll be in Richland, Iowa.
Really?
So we'll be back because the people of Iowa have responded well, and we always love to bring it to the people who respond well to it.
Good. And we'll get the information, or maybe you wanted to talk about information on how to contact you. Is there a website, or how do people get a hold of you?
The best way to find out more about the Wall of Heels is to visit our website, which is vvmf.org. And on there's a page all about the Wall of Heels that describes the program and all the contact information if you're interested, and more details about it. And they can get in contact with me, and I'll work with them to bring it to their community for everybody.
There's another part of, I think, on the website, but the virtual wall. Tell us about that. What is that about? The
virtual wall is a program we started to have people find other names, because we know that a lot of veterans out there are looking for people that they served with that lost their life in the war, but don't know too much about them, or don't know some of the details around it, or how to find them on the wall. So it started out as kind of a research database, but it's turned into an area where people can post remembrances online about the people that they served with. So if you knew he was the buddy next to you in the foxhole, you can write a nice little bit about how dedicated of a soldier he was, and we've had family members leave things. You can also post pictures, which is very important, also because it creates a human face for the name behind it. So it's turned into a good place for people to go and pay tribute to these men and make sure that their names live on.
It really is. I'm sure very good for the families too.
Yeah.
To go and see that their son or daughter was remembered, and what their buddies thought of them, and things that in their last days, basically, as to what was going on. You know, at the wall here in Washington, D.C., people will come and visit, and they'll leave notes, they'll leave flowers, all kinds of different things at the wall in tribute to their fallen relative or friend. Do you find the same thing when you're traveling around the country? Do people do the same thing?
Yeah, we have all sorts of items left at the wall when we come to towns. some are very simple, like letters is very common, but sometimes you'll get other things. I mean, things that came from the war itself. We've had a pair of boots left. We've had helmets. But by and large, we get very nice letters that were written either during the time of the war or written now as a way for them to almost speak to their loved one on the wall. And we collect all these items, and we make sure they go into our collection of items that are left at the wall here in D.C. To make sure that all these things are preserved, because we know they're important to the people that left them. So we want to make sure that they're collected and preserved and, maintained for people to see them many, many years from now.
Where are they placed, or you have a archives or?
Yeah, we have a collection which is in Maryland. It's a state-of-the-art facility where all the items are kept, cataloged, stored, documented, and preserved to the highest level to make sure that they don't deteriorate over time.
The wall here in Washington, do you know how many people visit that each year? And I think they're going to be making some improvements also. Would you tell us about that?
Yeah, the wall receives about over 3 million visitors a year. It's actually become one of the most visited memorials in all of D.C., which is a very powerful thing because D.C. has so many memorials to see, but visitors find their way to the wall in one way or another. And one of the things that we do every year is we add names. We have name additions because each year we find that soldiers who received wounds in Vietnam but were able to survive for years but ended up passing away because of those wounds, we then add them to the wall because we feel they are casualties of Vietnam even if they didn't pass away in country. So what we do every May is we have name additions to where we will add the men or woman's name to the wall in the closest location to where it would be. And over the years we've added several hundred names since the memorial's inception in 1982.
And there's going to be an addition to the wall down here as far as a more educational area. Do you want to tell us about that, or what the plans are?
Sure. The plan right now is to build an education center across the street from the wall. It's still on the National Monument, or on the National Mall, and it will go right behind the wall and next to the Lincoln Memorial, so it'll be a very prominent location. And the education center is a place where some of the items from our collection will be shown, and will also be a spot where we will show the faces of all the men and women that are on the wall. We are currently in a process of collecting all 58,260 photos of everybody that's on the wall, and our plan is to have essentially a gigantic television screen where we'll show all the pictures. And what we'll do is when you show up on a specific day, every soldier on the wall whose birthday is on that day, their picture will be shown on these screens so everybody can see that they're not just a name, that they're a face, and they're also a story, and the items will help tell that story, along with some more historical information about the war to teach the younger generations, because the veteran of the Vietnam War is, quickly aging, and we're afraid we're going to lose their story unless we have this center built. So that's our process now, is to raise the money and get it built.
Now, will this be above ground, or will it like the wall at ground level, or how does
it's currently underground because we didn't want to block the sight line of the National Mall, because it's very important, because we have beautiful views down on the mall. So it's currently an underground facility. So it won't ruin any of the look of the mall, but it will still have a great educational experience to all the visitors.
And are you raising money for this project now, and when do you expect the completion?
We're currently raising the money. It's a very expensive project, and so it's going to take some time, but we've been working for several years, and we're making wonderful progress with it. In terms of groundbreaking, we haven't set a date yet because it depends largely on how quickly we can raise the money. The sooner the better, obviously, we feel, but largely it depends on our fundraising efforts.
And are there educational materials like for classrooms that you can get will be able to get or currently get from the,
Sure.
For high school classes or history classes?
Yeah, we have a very large education program at VVMF. It's been an important drive us over the past few years, especially because we feel sometimes it's left out of the classes because of time. There's so much to teach in history now. But we developed a curriculum guide for teachers which explains lesson ideas, different ways to add it into your lessons to help teach children the lessons of the Vietnam War, to promote it in the classrooms now. And we encourage all teachers to have it, and if you contact our office, we are more than happy to send it to them, and to spread it out as much as we can.
I think this year marks the 30th anniversary of the Memorial Fund itself for the wall. Are you going to be marking that anniversary this year, or any special plans?
We have ceremonies that we hold every year. Our two biggest are Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and we always have a very large event down at the wall. So those will be our events where we celebrate, whether it be anniversaries of the wall or anniversaries of the start of the war. And actually this year will be the 50th anniversary since the start of the Vietnam War. And so we'll be having events, both Memorial Day and Veterans Day, to celebrate all the men and women that fought in that war.
How many men and women total? There were, I think, over 58,000
Sure.
lost their lives. But how many Vietnam War veterans are there?
There was about 3 million.
Yeah.
3 million men and women served in total during the entire course of the war. So it's a population that is out there in America, and it's a large population, and that's why when we travel to these communities, we really see them come out, because there's so many veterans of that war that are still with us, and want to pay tribute to the men that never came home.
Yeah, I've got two brothers that are veterans of Vietnam, and is there an renewed effort to say thank you? We see people coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and really it's so positive to see the kind of response that people have and thanking them for their service. It was a lot different back in the 60s and 70s that they were not treated well, and obviously became more unpopular as time went on.
Right.
Is there any kind of an effort to say thank you or outreach?
I definitely think there is, and I place that largely on the current conflicts in the Middle East. I think America has learned that despite what you might think about a war, the soldiers were there to fight, and they were there to fight for us here back in the United States. And I think America learned that over these past few wars that we've had, and so they're now looking back at how Vietnam veterans were treated and seeing the error of their ways, and so there is largely a renewed effort to say thank you, because they know that they were there for us despite what they might have thought of the Vietnam War. So I definitely think there is a renewed spirit, and you can see that at the wall every day.
It's very emotional for so many of the Vietnam veterans, and just to hear the word thank you, the words thank you, and to show appreciation is so important to so many of them. Do you personally go with the wall that heals on all the visits? Or?
I unfortunately don't. I make it out to as many as I can. I was lucky enough to travel to Harrisonburg, Virginia is our first site this year, then Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I was able to make it out to those. But by and large, I'm here in D.C., and my site managers, Richard and Debbie, are with the wall all year long. They travel it to the different towns and work with the visitors as they come to explain the wall. So they're my people out on the road.
Just in closing here, I think we're about out of time, but could you tell the folks in Iowa how they can help, and how would they contact you, and as far as funding to make sure that this tribute continues, and what's the best way to help?
The best way to help is to go onto our website, vvmf.org, take a look at what the Wall that Heals is, and you can donate on our website, and you can help us raise the money to continue this program. It's a wonderful program that helps a lot of people, but unfortunately it takes money to keep it going, and we're always looking for new people to help support us so that we can continue our good work, and any support we can get through donations is always very important to us, and extremely important to myself, because that's what is needed to keep going, and that can be done on our website. So we encourage everyone. It's
all private funding, isn't it? Just support.
Yep, all private funding. Yep.
There's no government appropriation or anything like that. So.
No, all our money comes from the great citizens of this country, generous companies that recognize the importance of our program. But those are all private, funds that we need to raise, and we offer help from anybody who would like to help us.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for what you do, and it is so appropriate and honorable to recognize those great Americans that served their country so well in Vietnam in a very difficult situation. And I appreciate you being with us today, Dan.
Well, I thank you for having me on and let me talk about the wonderful program that we have.
Every American owes a debt of gratitude to the men and women who have served or are currently serving in the armed forces. These brave Americans have put everything on the line to protect their families, communities, and their nation. If the Wall that Heals happens to stop near your hometown, I encourage you to pay a visit. It's truly a remarkable monument to the veterans of the Vietnam War. But even if you can't visit the wall, make sure you take the time to let the veterans in your family or community know that you appreciate their sacrifice and service. With Memorial Day this month, we owe it to our fallen heroes to take at least one day to pause from our routine, to honor their sacrifice for the liberty that we often take for granted. It is so little to ask of us when they have given so much. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again next time on the Congressional Report.
From the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., this has been the Congressional Report with Iowa Congressman Tom Latham. Have a question, comment, or concern? Congressman Latham wants to hear from you.